Hello, hello, blissful parents. Michelle Abraham, your host here today. I am bringing you an amazing guest today. Her name is Lorraine Durnford-Hill, and I am so excited what we're going to be diving in today. We're talking about taming those angry monsters. No, your kids aren't angry monsters, are they? Well, sometimes maybe. We're going to talk about all the things to do around taming those angry monsters today. So, Lorraine, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing well, Michelle. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm really excited about talking about the anger monster, and I think it applies to both parents and to the children. I think we all have maybe a small little anger monster inside.
Right.
It comes out every once in a while.
Right. One comes out and then the other one comes out too, right? At the same time. Sometimes it's the parent one first, sometimes it's the kid one first. Well, blissful parents, let me tell you a little bit more about Lorraine. Lorraine is a early childhood resource consultant with over 40 years of experience working with therapists, children, and parents. She is currently working on masterminding her second career after retirement in 2021. She supports families with parenting issues and works one-on-one with kids. She's recently developed a course called exactly what we're talking about today, the 5 steps to taming the angry monster. The program helps you fill your toolbox so you can bring connection, calmness, and joy back into your life. Those are 3 of my favorite words. And I think those 3 words would probably solve most of the world's problems, wouldn't it?
So true. So true.
Right. So thanks for joining us, Lorraine. I'm excited to chat with you today. So tell us a little bit about the angry monster.
Well, the reason why I chose sort of that sort of vision of the anger monster is a little kid drew a picture for me one day, and it was a monster with hair coming out of its head and its arms on sort of his hips, and it just went, oh, that's how you're feeling. And it just thought that's a perfect name for that, because it was showing me what this child was feeling, that there was an anger monster inside him that was, was sad, was, his hair was up, even upset sort of thing. And just the way he was holding the body of the monster, you could get a lot of message from that. So then I was teaching a course called Cool Solutions for many, many years to parents. And then it's an old program. So I've decided that, it needed a lot more update with new facts, new information. And so I brought it all together using the framework of self-regulation, which is Stuart Shanker's framework called self-reg. And so under that umbrella of making sure that we are self-regulated, then we can work on our anger better.
That's great. So self-regulation, just for maybe our parents that aren't familiar with that term, or what exactly does that mean? What is self-regulation?
Self-regulation is basically how well we manage stress, because stress comes at us all different ways. And every time we have stress, we use a lot of energy, whether it is physical energy, mental energy, but there's energy is used. And what self-regulation is how well we recover, learning to recover from that stress. Mm-hmm. So the faster that we can do that, the better we are at self-regulating.
Ooh, that kind of reminds me of like when our heartbeats get really fast and then we're learning to slow down our heart rate, and that recovery, like in fitness or something, it's like that recovery rate then becomes really important. So that's interesting. The self-regulation kind of reminds me of like, it's like the recovery after the stress. That's great. Well, thank you for explaining that, because I know sometimes we just assume that we all know what that means. And so it's nice to actually have an explanation as to what that actually does mean. So thank you for sharing that. And so let's go back to our angry monster here for a minute.
Okay. So the way I like to teach it is thinking about 5 steps. So you're going to reframe how you see anger, because anger is actually just an emotion, just like happy, sad, mad. It is just an emotion, and it can be a positive thing, because anger tells us that there's something not right. And that's what it signals. Something's not right, and we need to make a change. So we could make the change for something really positive, or we could go down the negative and be miserable and be mad at the world. So we make a choice. And every time that we make a choice, there's a consequence. So hopefully we make good choices so that we have good consequences. So it is all about learning how anger affects us. So we're going to reframe it. We're going to, you know how we sometimes have those little voices in our heads that will tell us, don't do this, do this. It's about changing that little voice to something more positive. So you could say that people are so stupid. It might be something you say. And really what you could change that to is they don't have the skills yet to do this. So you're changing the way you see it. So you're reframing what you're seeing and how you're understanding it. And then if you go on to sort of understand what anger is and how we interact when we're angry, because it is about going back and forth. If you stop the anger, when it comes at you, it's an invitation and you go, I'm not joining that conversation, you're going to stop it right there. But if you take on that conversation, take on that invitation, it's going to go around and around and around and around till you're both exhausted.
So you both have big angry monsters.
Yes. So the two monsters are going at each other. So we have to think about it as an invitation. Somebody has done something to us, whether it's real or imaginative, somebody's done something to us, and we can choose to accept that or say, I'm not going to take that. So once we have figured out how we're going to deal with anger when it sort of comes our way, we have to think about, when am I angry? What happens to my body? Well, we all know that when we're angry, the heart rate increases. We are in that fight, flight, and sometimes freeze mode when we're angry. Some kids just stop and just can't do anything. So we want to help them recognize where their state is. What are they feeling in their bodies? Where's that anger feeling? Like, tell me where your anger is. Is it in your chest? Is it in your head? Is it in your fists? Tell me where that anger is. And once you can, figure that out, you're going to be able to help them deal with it better. Maybe by doing some relaxation, by doing some mindfulness, by, sort of changing the scenery, because they're recognizing, okay, my jaw's tight, this is happening, I need to just relax. So you have to relax. And so there's reframe, recognize, and reduce. So by giving children ways to reduce their stress, and stress comes from a lot of different places. Stress can come from biological, so you're hungry, you're tired. It can come from emotional, you're angry, you're upset, you're happy, whatever could trigger. And it could come from your cognitive skills. Maybe you're missing something, maybe you haven't learned something, and so that stresses you out. And of course, if your friends don't play with you, that is a big stressor. That's just from the social stressor. And then there's that pro-social, where you think it's better to lie, or you just don't know how to deal with things. And so all these things are part of a child's life almost every day. And if they don't have a way of reducing that stress, they haven't been given the tools, they're going to feel stress. And of course, then they're going to come home, and that stress is going to rub off on the parents, and that, will add to the parents' stresses in those 5 areas. So it's a roller coaster of.
Yeah, so that one I see comes through the door and stomps up the stairs and throws the backpack down. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's what I see come through my house sometimes.
Yeah, so then you've got to do some detective work. Okay, did he have a bad day at school? Is he hungry? Is he tired? What is the underlying issue there.
Right.
You know, he's probably not mad at me, but we take it as, well, he's not doing what I told him to do. He's supposed to hang his backpack up and he's supposed to, you know, shut the door quietly. He's not doing that. So he must be out to get me.
Nothing to do with us.
About what's gone on in his day.
I usually call it the hangry monster. Yeah. Usually something to do with being hungry. Awesome. So we've got the reframe, we've got recognize, and we've got reduce. Cool. What's number 4?
So number 4 is reflect. So why did that trigger me? What was going on that I am triggered by that situation? So for parents, why is it that I got upset that he ran upstairs and threw his backpack? What does that mean to me? Could mean that you feel he's disrespecting you. It could mean that he's not listening. There's all kinds of reasons that you might be triggered. And to figure out what those triggers are that are making you feel angry or the child feeling angry. So one of the things that I liked to do when my daughter was younger was instead of saying, how was your day or whatever, I would say, tell me one good thing about your day. Tell me one thing that you want to do differently tomorrow. And that was a different way of saying what went bad or what wasn't good. And I found that was a way of opening the conversation on, you know, the positive and negatives of the day. And then you can get some insight.
I like that. Then you're not leaving it to the good, bad, just the one word answers that don't get you any information.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's simple. You can do it. You know, I used to do it just before she went to bed, but you could do it at supper time, you know, and you can share one thing that you had a great day at and one thing you want to do tomorrow that maybe didn't get done today, or, you know, that is in your plan. So it's a way of encouraging communication about what's going on in their life. So I think that if we can reflect on those triggers, we're going to understand what's happening. And then we can reflect back on how we're going to reduce. What are we going to do to reduce those triggers? So are we going to take time for ourselves? Are we going to listen to music? What are we going to do to reduce those triggers? And then we want to get to the restore. We want things to go back to normal. But there's another skill that we have to learn, is the negotiation part. We have to be able to learn how to get both sides working together. And that's not always easy, because we tend to commit, you did this, you did that. And that doesn't help. So you have to really take a step back and say, this is how I felt. Can you tell me how you felt? And so again, it's about connection and it's about conversation. Because if you don't have that connection and conversation, you're not going to come to a good solution. It's very hard to do that.
Right. And so my question around that is, do you wait for the reduction of the stress in the moment to have that restorative conversation?
You cannot have it in the moment. There's no way. What we've learned is when we are angry, we do not have full use of our brain. Mm-hmm. It's like flipping the lid, you know, you've got the reptilian brain in here and you flip the lid. And so you do not have control of your logical thinking, and you just can't think clearly. My best example of that was I was teaching the course, and it was the second night in, and a man came in to be part of the course. He didn't want to be there. And he started yelling at me and looked at me and said, "Are you even old enough to have children?" And I'm like, clearly I was old enough to have children, but he couldn't see that. He was in his own mind. He had his own issues. He couldn't even be aware of his environment. Mm-hmm. And he just started to escalate and escalate and escalate. We had to ask him to leave because he wasn't going to listen to anything I said at that point.
Right.
and he had to move on. So yes, it's not the time when they're angry. It's not the time, but you also need to say, could we meet at a later time?
Mhm.
Make a time for that. The same thing with your spouse. If you're having an argument with your spouse and you're both heated, you want to be able to take some time away. So you're buying time. Okay, we haven't finished this yet, but let's meet after the kids go to bed, or let's take time whenever, that this is a set time. Because if you don't set the time, it's not going to get resolved.
Right. And so that goes to setting a time with our kids too. Like when everything's calmed down, let's talk about this, or let's talk about how we can do this a little bit differently next time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so typically what you would do if you were negotiating with your child, you might say, this is how I feel when you do this. Can you tell me how you are feeling? And the child, again, it's that listening back and forth, and that's got to be key.
Mhm.
So the child says their point, and then you would come back. This is what I hear you saying, that you were upset about school and you were just frustrated, and that's why this happened. And then you're going to look at it with, okay, let's do some brainstorming. What could we do differently? What are you willing to do? And what am I willing to do? So you're just writing down ideas, no matter how bizarre they are,
Mhm.
write them down, because something funny could come out of it. Like, maybe you could have a poll that he could see if he could get it on, if he feels like he needs to do that. Anything goes, because all you're doing is brainstorming at this point.
Mhm.
And so you're brainstorming, and then you agree to, what would you agree to? Which one of these things fits for you? And then you have the answer those questions: when, why, how, where, and who's going to do all these things. Because if you don't even put it down that detailed, it's just probably going to go out the window. And you're not going to do this for everything that you get angry about, but it's those things that never seem to get resolved. Those
Yeah.
things that come up at one after another after
Keeps
another.
going every time, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. And back to our backpack monster that would come in the house. I used to, I blamed always on like the just being hungry or whatever. And actually, one time when we sat down and talked about it, we discovered that he doesn't have a place to put his backpack, so he doesn't ever know what to do with it. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? Like I just thought he was throwing us. He was mad all the time, but he actually didn't know where to put it. So I was like, that seems like such an easy fix. But we just let it go on so long that it became an issue.
Yeah.
So funny how he's sometimes when you have those conversations, I think there's those surprising things that come out of that.
Yes, it's definitely. And it is that conversation where no one's blaming. It's just let's have a conversation about this, because this is how I'm feeling. And, I want things to be different. And I don't want to, I may not want to feel this way, every time you come in the door, wondering if you're going to be angry or you're going to be this way, and so,
Right. So
you're negotiating that.
so in the negotiation, is it like a promise or like okay, so next time I come in the door, I'm going to do this, this, and this, so they know what the plan is? Is that kind of
Yeah.
the goal
Yeah.
at the end of the conversation? Mhm.
Yeah. So that's what you're going to end up like. Who is going to do it? I'm going to put my back on a pole, or
Mhm.
whatever you've decided. But you have something to do too. You
Right.
may
Or
have to
maybe
get
I
in that
give you
pole.
5 minutes to come in the house without asking you how your day was or something like that. Right?
Yeah, and that's what he
Yeah.
may come up with too.
Right.
There may be other things, but you want to make sure that you work on the issue, because other things may come up that
Mhm.
you don't really want to deal with. That's going to be a separate issue, but try and focus on what the issue is at hand. Maybe as we say, we put it on a, little piece of paper saying, we need to talk about that another time.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because even if it's not like, I mean, obviously you don't want to do this for every issue, but it's a few ones that are big enough now, but have opening up that conversation, having that routine with how you talk about it probably would help then down the road when they become a tween or a teenager, and it's like, about the drinking or about the about other staying out late or driving the car or things like that are bigger issues. That probably then that skill is really helpful to have then installed them when they were younger, that communication and connection point for the parents and kids.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if your kid's stuck on Wii all day long or whatever the latest trend is, I'm not up on my games. If they get stuck on that, that may trigger you, like they're being lazy, they're not doing things. And so you're going to need that sort of a contract almost,
Right.
this, and work through it. So you get to that win-win. And what if you can't get to that win-win? What if he doesn't want to do what you do, and you're going to have to negotiate again? What are you willing to do,
Right.
to make this work?
Now, just to put the negotiating into perspective, as parents and kids, negotiation is like a communication point. It's not then like the parents not being the parents or the kid being in control or overruling the parents or anything like that, right? It's just, if can you just share your thoughts on the whole negotiation piece? Because I'm assuming some listeners at this point might be like, what do you mean my kids get to negotiate everything?
No, because you can say, no, I don't agree with that.
Right.
The child may say, I want to do this, this, and this, and eat candy and do this. No, that, I'm sorry, that is not acceptable. So again, let's find something that we both agree on. Why do you think you should have candy and this, and this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I want it. Well, that's not a good enough reason for that. So, but as you said, your son didn't know where to put his things. You wouldn't have known that if you hadn't have had the conversation in the first place. And making it so open that they can put anything out there that's related to it. You can come up with some nifty solutions. And, if it was something that maybe they could help you build or do, or, if they could be part of making the solution, they're going to buy in a lot better.
Yes, like we went on then a hunt around the house. Where would be a good place to put our backpacks when we come home? And so they were a part of that solution, which I think they felt better about that. And then they got a little bit of a say in it. And then guess what? Those backpacks go there every time now.
Yeah.
Once in a while, the angry monster still does throw it down and stomp upstairs, but that's life.
And I'm sure the mother angry monster comes out every once in a while as well.
Yeah, well, I don't know. After hosting this podcast for so many episodes now, the angry monster comes out a lot less. But yes, every once in a while, when the cup is not full and the angry monster is triggered, it does come out for sure. Yeah. So the toolbox that you have. So we're filling the toolbox for our parents so that they can have connection, calmness, and joy in their lives. Why is this important?
Well, I think that, we all think, oh, parenting, everybody does it. Parenting is easy. It isn't. It isn't
who
an
those people
easy
are.
job.
Who says that?
Well, everybody does it. So, it's got to be an easy job. I'm just having a problem. And it isn't. Everybody is having problems. And it's about the connection. My sort of 4 key things that I believe are really important is connection. Mm-hmm. If you don't have connection, you're going to struggle. So you have to have connection with your child. You have to teach them and yourself self-regulation, because if you are not self-regulated, you can't learn. You can't communicate well. You can't move forward because you're either angry or you're unfocused. It's just puts a lot of barriers in the way. And you've got to have fun. You've got to have fun. You've got to make it fun. If it's too serious, if it's too too much work, you're not going to move forward. And play, whether you're a little child or a big kid, play is where we learn. That's why we enjoy our hobbies, because we're learning while we're doing those things and we're having fun, we're playing.
Right.
So I believe that those are 4 keys to move anybody forward, whether it's in the anger, whether it's developmentally. If you have those 4 components, then you are going to be able to make a difference.
Awesome. So we've got play, we've got fun, we've got connection. And what was the fourth one? It's gone out of my head.
Self-regulation.
Obviously, self-regulation. Clearly, that's the one I need to work on. Easily forgot that one. Just kidding. That's great. Yeah, I think, oh my gosh, yeah, I was just as you were saying that, just going back over the last few days, we're at spring break here in my household. So taking the kids out of their normal routine and on a little adventure, and a lot of fun was had, a lot of games were played, a lot of connection was made. And I think that was so important to just get out of the normal routine and have everyone just, let loose and have fun for a few days. And what a difference that makes. And, it's great because my kids were so good. Like, they're so great. Like, they were not fighting with each other. They were not fighting with me. They were, totally cool. And we just had a blast, and we got to really know each other on a deeper level this last couple of days. And it was just so great. So for us, I think too, like, getting out of that normal, routine of like, everything, it kind of gets mundane sometimes, that routine, and not as much fun as you said. And, I think that was really helpful for us to get out of our normal zone and into something different.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I didn't talk about was, when we get angry, it is a choice, and every situation has a minimum of 500 choices. So we can make that choice to be angry, or we can make the choice to do something else. So one of the tools that I'd like to give parents is I used to put it in a piggy bank, or you could put it in whatever, but I used to make a list of things that you could do if you were angry. So go for a walk, talk to someone. And I just made a mega list of just slips of paper with things that you could do. Mm-hmm. And when I was teaching the course, I would randomly pull one out, and a person would tell me what they were angry about and what, something that happened that week. And sometimes the first one I picked out would be the perfect one for them. Mm-hmm. Other times it was, 5 or 6 in there. But even if I got 5 or 6 out, that still meant I had 494 other options.
Right.
Instead of becoming angry or getting upset. So it's interesting to prepare yourself for situations. Mm-hmm. One of the examples was one of the dads, he was really angry with his child because he wouldn't be quiet. Mom needed to sleep. She had a rough night. She wasn't feeling well. And he kept getting angrier and angry with his child. So I said, let's just pull out my little piggy bank. And I pulled out the piggy bank. And the first one was, have a piece of chocolate. Well, that really didn't fit.
Clearly,
and we went and talked to a friend. Well, that didn't work. Third one was go for a walk. And he went, oh, yeah, I could take him for a walk. Mm-hmm. It was something he really didn't think of.
Yeah.
But it made sense. He couldn't think at that point too, because he was angry with his son for, being noisy and making a mess and all that. And so having that little container, pulling out one thing at a time to mm-hmm. see if it fits. So yeah, maybe you have to go through 400 of them because it's such a big problem.
Yeah.
Or maybe you go through the first, 10, you go, oh, that's a good solution. Because if we don't have the belief that there is a solution, we're just going to be feeling powerless and hopeless. But if we believe that there's always a possibility, there's always a way to get around this, then we're going to feel more powerful.
That's great. I like that. I was just envisioning also too, like, could we have like I could have a little piggy bank like that for, what else to do besides being on electronic devices? What other things that we still can do, right? And it's like almost like, oh yeah, same sort of thing. Like they can do a little pull those out for giving them some ideas of other things they can do. Such a great idea. I love it. So Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic about taming our angry monster for us for the kids and us parents too. Now where can our audience connect with you today?
So you can email me at tamingtheangermonster@gmail.com. And if you connect with me, I can send out 20 ways to reframe that self-talk. So
Ooh.
changing the way you see something and
Mhm.
change what you're telling yourself. So I can send those out to anybody who is interested. I also have a website that is mychildisspecial.com, and it's resources for families that if they have children with special needs and just children in general.
Great. That's awesome. And that what was that one again? My child is special.
mychildisspecial.ca.
.ca. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lorraine, for being with us today. Any last words for our parents out there today?
Well, I love this quote by Stuart Shanker. See a child differently, you see a different child.
Mm,
I think that is so true. If we
so true.
use with softer eyes, we definitely see a different child.
Awesome. That's a great quote. I love it. Well, thanks so much, Lorraine. It's been a pleasure having you here, and we look forward to connecting with you again. Blissful parents, go out there, have a blissful week, and we'll see you again next week.